All right, we're at 10 o'clock Central Time. Again, my name is Phil Simeone, and I work for Centurion Technologies. I have assisting me today Jesse Hebison, Demetrius Levet, and Tony Shablum. Jesse's in our sales department. He manages our channel partners primarily, and we have Demetrius Levet, who is the head of our technical support. And then Tony's also in our sales department. He'll be assisting me with questions. Actually, they'll all be assisting me with questions. So again, we appreciate Jesse, Demetrius, and Tony's help. Thanks everybody for attending today. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing an overview of the SmartShield suite. And how we're going to be doing that is I'm going to be sharing with you basically real life scenarios of management of these applications. And I'll be using a virtual machine to show the client side of things. And on my desktop I have our Smart Control, which is a centralized console. So you'll be getting the best of both worlds. I'm going to be going over the client side, and then I'm going to be going over the management side. We're going to focus some on our scheduling, especially Windows updates, talk a little bit about WakeonLAN, and just best practices in general in this overview. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to share my screen with you. And while we're waiting for the screen to populate, I do want to let everyone know that we're recording this webinar today, and it will be available later this week or early next week for you to review or share with people. Okay, so what you see here is a virtual machine, and the desktop is this mountainous desert range here, and this again represents our SmartShield client side of things. So I also want to encourage people that if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Use the chat or the questions panel of the GoToWebinar interface, and Tony and Jesse and Demetrius will be glad to answer them. And then we're going to go over some of the more frequently asked questions at the end. So with our software, many of you know there's two pieces. There's the SmartShield side, which is again the client side of things, and then you have the Smart Control, which is loaded onto a PC or a server. And if I want to interface locally with the SmartShield, I'm going to come down in my system tray, and I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my toolbar. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. And there we have the icon here for the SmartShield, this little round looking stop sign icon, and I'm going to hit configure. And then you're going to see the SmartShield interface populate. So again, this is if I'm physically by the machine and I want to go ahead and manage certain aspects of the SmartShield. And you'll notice right away that there's a button here that says Protect. And basically that's telling you that if I click on this button and enter in my password, and of course you do have to reboot after you enter your password, or you can wait, but you do have to initiate the reboot to change protection mode. So right now I'm in an unprotected mode because it says that my option will be Protect. If I was in a protected mode, it would say Unprotect. So it's pretty straightforward as far as changing protection modes from the client. Temporary storage. So temporary storage is kind of like the heart of our protection in a sense. It is an intangible area. You cannot access temporary storage. A lot of people think that you can access temporary storage, but that is not accurate. You can change the size of our temporary storage area, but that's about it. And basically what temporary storage is like our sandbox. Okay, it's where all the changes on that machine are going when we're protecting it with SmartShield. So with our technology, we do not take snapshots of the machines at certain times and then restore back to those points. What we do is we redirect every change on that machine, and it goes into our temporary storage area. Think of it as a bucket, and every drop of water that goes into that bucket is a data change. And when you empty the bucket, that's when you're rebooting it. And all the changes that you made on that machine are wiped away. This is something that you're going to set during the install, It'll prompt you with a recommended file size, and you can adjust that if need be. But this is an area that you probably won't mess with very much after the installation. But again, I kind of wanted everyone to know just what temporary storage is about and how our protection works. So again, we redirect all the changes that are made on that machine to our temporary storage area, which is much less resource intensive. We have a persistent storage drive. Persistent storage is basically an unprotected drive. You could choose to use it, you could choose not to use it. Basically, it's a place where you can save data, and that data will be retained after a reboot. I can change the file size of persistent storage, and I can change the drive letter of it. And basically, I would say in most educational and public library circumstances, not too many of our customers use the persistent storage just because they flat out don't want anyone to save anything, anywhere, anytime. But if you do need to use it, or if you do need to save locally, this is one of the ways that SmartShield will allow you to do that. And you'll notice here it's asking me if I want to save my changes, and that's what this window's about. So under our protected drives, basically what this does is gives you the option to protect multiple drives. In this case, I have an E drive and I'm choosing to protect it. Okay, we are always going to protect your C drive. All right, but again with this it's very simply we give you the option to protect multiple drives. So if you have a backup drive and you want to protect that as well, we can certainly do that for you. Optional directory protection. Some people may be familiar with this, some people may not be that have used our software. It's a technology we worked very, very hard on for probably 2 years. It came out in our product about 2.5 years ago. So what optional directory protection does is it allows the administrator to save locally to the machine while it's protected. Okay, so unlike persistent storage, where with persistent storage we're creating a separate partition, optional directory protection is saving right to the place you want to save to. So if you want to open up My Documents or a subfolder in My Documents and save there, you could do that. If you want to open up my music library or my pictures library, you could do that. So optional directory protection, basically, it allows more flexibility with the computer. Historically, with our SmartShield, you had to save to external devices or use our persistent storage. With optional directory protection, it makes it a lot easier, again, to save locally. It's probably more widely used on administrative machines or in enterprise situations, small, medium business, because in many cases they're going to have to save locally. Optional directory protection will not, and again, I just want everyone to understand this, it will not allow you to make changes in the registry or in the system. Okay, for the obvious reasons, we don't want anything changed in those areas or any chance of malware infection in those areas. So again, optional directory protection can be used for a variety of things. One of the things that it is used for is our SmartShield Antivirus. So we use optional directory protection to allow for our updates, our antivirus updates, to come down real time. All right, so instead of you having to create an unprotected window to run antivirus updates, what we do with our SmartShield Antivirus is it's in conjunction with our optional directory protection, and then every update that comes through is coming down real time, and therefore you do not have to take the extra time to do those updates. So customers tell me there's two main benefits to that. One is that it strengthens their security that much more. And the reason is because they do not have to unprotect. So the less that you have to unprotect, the more powerful your strength is on your network, the more powerful the protection is that SmartShield can provide. And the other item is again, that they don't have to take the time to run the maintenance window to update the antivirus software. So optional directory protection can be very helpful, again, just depending on your needs. So with SmartShield, we have the option of antivirus, as I mentioned, and it's pretty straightforward. The engine that we use for our antivirus is the same engine that is used in Microsoft Office 365. So our same engine protects Office 365 as well as Google Docs. it's going to give you most of the same functionality that you're used to. You can manage this from our Smart Control console, so that's very important to note. With our Smart Control console, you can manage our antivirus settings and functions. So it gives us certain information here that you're probably all pretty used to seeing. Now we move down to the settings. So with our settings, we have real-time scanning, scan settings, detection action. We can update the location of where we get those updates. And we can exclude files. We can exclude extensions. We can exclude directories. So again, these are things that you're probably used to seeing in most antivirus products out there. The big difference with ours is that, again, those updates will come down real time, and it's just a lot less hassle for you to deal with, and it's a very strong antivirus. I can schedule scans, and of course we have the history and quarantine, which I'm not going to show you the history and quarantine just for time's sake, but again, those are just standard items. So that's our SmartShield Antivirus. We've had that for about 1.5 years now, I believe. It's probably been 1.5 years to 2 years. We've had a lot of compliments with it. People seem to be very happy with it, again, just because it saves time, and it is a good antivirus product. Machine control. So under machine control, we have lockouts. I'm going to start at the bottom. So what we have here is firewire blocking, just like it sounds. Most of you probably aren't even using firewire blocking, but we do have customers that are using it, and they requested that we keep it in there. So why not just keep it in there? So we did. We also have USB blocking. Okay, so USB blocking, you have two primary ways that you can interact with this. One, if I hit this block button, it's going to block all my USB ports on my machine. And for like public libraries and education labs and many other scenarios, you don't really want to maybe block the whole USB port. But again, obviously in some cases that are justified, you definitely want to have that ability to do. So we give it to you there. We have an advanced function. And basically what our advanced function allows you to do is choose a different class of USB device. So we have a variation of classes here. And all these classes, what you could do is you can choose to block those types of USB devices. So maybe it's an MP3 player I want to block under audio, or a scanner under image, or a video camera under video. I'm going to leave my mass storage devices open, my thumb drives, my external hard drives. I'm going to leave my human input devices open, my keyboard and mouse, for the obvious reasons. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to talk about wireless controller for a moment. About 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, it's probably been about that long. I was doing a webinar for a gentleman in Illinois at a public library, and he asked me, he said, "Phil, does that really block the wireless controller from working?" And I said, "It does." And he said, "Oh, that's great, man, that is awesome." And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't understand why that would be so important to people. And so I asked him, I said, why is this so important to you? And he told me something kind of scary. So what he told me is in his library, he had a bunch of patrons coming up to the reference desk, and they were complaining that things were getting ordered underneath their accounts. And also some other goofy things were going on in the IT side of things. And so he did a little bit more investigation. And what he found was a wireless controller device stuck on the back of a machine that was underneath a desk, right, a table, so you couldn't visually see the wireless controller device. And just to make sure everybody understands what the wireless controller device is about, basically what it does is it is a device, a hardware device that you can hook up to your computer, and it gives you a new connection to the internet. So basically it would bypass the internet services and protocols of whatever organization and create its own tunnel right to the internet. In this case, this patron combined the wireless controller with a keylogger so that when anyone sat down at that computer, it logged every keystroke and then transmitted that data through the wireless controller to where he gathered it. And then this malicious patron would come back into the library, and he would use that information and log in as other patrons, or in this case, even the administrator would sit down at that computer, and he did not know that the wireless controller was on there, And so that malicious patron got the administrative passwords, which you can imagine, that it just goes downhill from there pretty much. So I wanted just to kind of point this out. We will block a wireless controller, and I always kind of encourage everybody. In any webinar I've ever done for customers, I always mention this, just as information that may help you down the line. So we also have a stealth setting. In our stealth setting, what that does is it hides our software. So that way, if the users are looking for stuff, they don't see us on there. They don't see our icon, and you're going to have to use a hotkey, a Control-Alt-F10, to populate the icon. And that way you can go ahead, double-click that, or right-click and hit Configure, and then interface with the software. We definitely encourage you to use stealth mode, by the way. In my opinion, the less a patron knows as far as what kind of applications are on the machine to protect the machine, the better. So again, we recommend that you do run in the stealth mode. Windows updates. So this is one of two ways that our software will help you with your Windows updates. If I check this box, this machine locally will go out and get my Windows updates. I'm going to get the options to choose whatever day of the week I want to run it, so we'll just leave it at Sunday, and another option, whatever time on the hour. We'll just go ahead and leave it at 12 a.m. And then I also have an option here for maximum minutes allowed for the update process to run. So I might choose 60 minutes. You have 45 to 400 minutes. So you have a range of a minimum of 40 minutes and a maximum of 400 minutes. And so I'm just going to choose 60 minutes. And basically what's going to happen is, and one other thing, the advanced function. The advanced function allows you to choose the different levels of updates that you wish to run. So you can see we have all, moderate, important, and critical updates. We'll choose critical updates. So what would happen here every Sunday at 12 a.m. as long as this computer is on, folks. So you got to remember your computers would have to be powered on for this to operate. Through the smart control, you do have the ability to do a WakeonLAN and wake your computers up if need be. But this again is a local function. So many times customers will use this function because they're not managed by a centralized console like the smart control. Okay, or maybe they're not on the network, but they are on the internet. They are connected to the internet. So this again is a standalone option. So every Sunday at 12 a.m., this machine will disable. It will reboot into an unprotected mode. Immediately the keyboard and mouse will block. So that way no one can interface with that computer while it's unprotected. So let's say, for instance, you have a cleaning crew that comes in at night, and you don't want to take any chances with them sitting down at a machine that's unprotected and messing with it. So we automatically block the keyboard and mouse to prevent that from happening. We will run all the updates that we can in this 60-minute window that you've chosen. It could be 120 minutes. Again, the range is between 40 and 400. So we'll run all the Windows updates in that period of time that we can. We will skip all the updates that require human interaction. Okay, so we have an API that if we see that it requires human interaction, and of course as long as Microsoft properly flagged it, we will skip that update so we don't get stuck. And we'll run all those updates until we get to that maximum minutes allowed, 60 minutes. If we are writing an update, let's say 5 of 6, and we hit our 60 minutes max, right, we will not just stop the process. We recognize that our updates are right in the middle of 5 of 6. So update 5 of 6, we will complete update 5 of 6, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so we go ahead and we do a reboot as part of this function. After the reboot, we'll delay for, I believe it's 5 minutes, and allow for those final writes to hit the hard drive. All right? And then we're going to reprotect the machine and reboot again back into that protected mode. So this is all done at the standalone level, at the client level. And this is one of two ways, everybody, that you can do your Windows updates. Machine control. So what we have here is the ability to actually block some things. We could hide the start button. We could block command line. We could block or hide the registry. We can list applications that we do not want the user to access with this blacklist. So this again is a function that will actually do some blocking. Historically, our products have been unrestrictive, so we allow them to do whatever it is that you allow them to do. So if you have group policies in place, our software will not affect that, but you probably won't have to rely on the group policies as much in the sense that you're using the group policies to restrict access to certain parts of the computer, or restrict access, or just restrict whatever to prevent unwanted changes. Obviously, you're going to need your group policies to restrict access across your network and other sensitive areas, but as far as just trying to use them to keep the unwanted changes off, our software will definitely lessen your reliance upon that. Again, we work just fine with the group policies. Under power setting, basically what this does is we give you the option to do a reboot on Logoff, on Windows Logoff. All right, so basically the idea there is that if you don't want, let's say I'm using a computer and I do something to it that is inappropriate, but I do a Windows Logoff, so that way my colleague Jesse, who gets on that computer next, will not see what I've done. It wipes the machine away, the changes away, and that way it's clean for that next user. So that's the point there. If you're using any kind of a time management software, you probably would not use this function because they're going to be logging off of that time management product, maybe like PC Reservation, SAM, Cassie, Pharos. So it just depends. Okay, so what this does is I can set a daily reboot. So if I check this box, basically what I can do is I can say, okay, at 5 p.m. I want this machine to reboot, and every day at 5 p.m. it's going to reboot. So that's a pretty straightforward function. Shutdown settings. So this is a local way to shut your machines down. This does not involve the Smart Control console, our centralized console to manage them. This is a local function. So here's a message that is our default message, power save shutdown. You can customize your message right there if you need to. And I can go ahead and check the box of the days that I want it to shut down. So maybe it's 5 p.m. and then maybe on Tuesdays it's 8 a.m. So anyway, you guys probably can understand that. It's a pretty straightforward function. And again, this is a shutdown that happens locally on the client. Getting to some of the last stuff here on the local client, under settings and smart control, basically this is a place where you can change the handshake between the client, SmartShield, and the smart control. So we have the IP address, or we have the machine name. It just depends on what you're doing. If you had dynamic IP, you're not going to use the IP address because it's not static. You're going to use the machine name to make that connection. This is something that you set in the install, everybody. And basically, again, this is if you need to change it after the install, down the road. The port of communication is 25553. That is the default port. This can also be changed as long as it's not being used, of course, on your network. And you would have to change that on the smart control as well, of course. Passwords. So this is if I need to change my local SmartShield password. Pretty straightforward. I think probably the most interesting part of this function is our temporary passwords area. So what you see here is the ability to create temporary passwords. You can give that password a start date. You give that password an end date if you'll follow my cursor. Okay, I can give that a use count. So if I'm going on vacation and maybe I only need them to use it once, I just let them use it once. That you probably would let them use it a few more times than that, but just depend on your situation. And then I can also assign permissions to those passwords, to those temporary passwords that I create. And I say temporary, but you can make them last as long as you need to. So if you have the need for sub-administrative passwords, again, that's sub-administrative passwords, you can create those here, and you can assign permissions for those sub-administrators. So if you're going on vacation again, and you just don't want to give out your password or a set of passwords, whatever, you can create your own, and that way you're probably going to feel more comfortable about that because you didn't give away one of your 5 base sets of passwords or however you do your passwords. Security setting. This is basically a convenience function. For administrators, if you're going to be doing a lot of configuration changes within the interface, you can click on this box, and that way you don't have to hit in your password every single time that you do a function. When you close this GUI, it resets itself, so there's no risk of someone just coming in and doesn't need a password. Product updates, last thing on the local client interface, these are talking about our product updates, SmartShield. Basically, our product updates come about every 4 to 6 months on average now. The product's been out for quite a few years, so we don't really do a ton of updates. Mainly they're just requests for enhancements by customers or just specific bug fixes for certain customers. And that's it really on the SmartShield client end side of things. And again, I'd like to encourage you all that if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask them using your questions and chat panel of the GoToWebinar. So I'm going to minimize my virtual machine, and I'm going to bring up our Smart Control. So one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the system requirements. So with Smart Control, you can load it onto a PC or a server. So a PC running XP all the way through Windows 8. We'll work on 8.12. So again, for the SmartShield client side, same range. XP all the way through 8.1. All right. With the Smart Control, you do have the option to, again, load it onto a PC, or you can load it onto a server, 2003, 2008, 2012, or virtual. So you have some flexibility. A lot of people think that you need to go out and buy a server to run our Smart Control, but you do not. It might be more efficient and effective for you if you have a server that you want to load it on, but again, that is up to you. So when I open up our Smart Control, there's 3 primary areas that I like to focus on. One is the information area. So I have all this data, all these columns. I have the name of the computer, the MAC address, the IP address. I can move these things around. I like to have the MAC address next to the IP address, next to the name for the for that reason. I can scroll over here to the horizon, right? And we have all this data. And I promise everyone I will not go over every single thing. We might be here a little longer than you probably want. But I can filter this. So if I want to filter by MAC, I can hit the title column, I can do that, or by the name, I can do that. And again, whatever it is that you're looking for, whatever criteria in the column. Over here to my left is the grouping section. This is an important section because this is where I'm going to create groups for my environment. So let's just go ahead and create a group, and we'll call this Lab 1. All right. And let's create another group. So I'm right-clicking on my topmost loop IP address. And I'm hitting New Group. And we'll just call this Lab 2. And then I can also create subgroups. We'll just leave those as new groups. And I can name them, of course, if I need to. Just call it second floor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to place my computers into these groups. So I'm going to organize my environment. So we'll just say this range of computers from here to here is in Lab 1. So I'm going to drag and drop those into Lab 1. So I'm highlighting. So I'm clicking on the topmost machine, and I'm holding down the Shift button to highlight the range. And I can also hit Control and highlight individual computers as needed. Okay, so we'll say maybe these are all in Lab. I guess we want to repeat them. Say these are all in Lab 2. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move my virtual machine. The 1.7 fill is actually the virtual machine that I've been showing you. And we'll move that to the second floor. So grouping is very important because obviously you're going to be organizing your computers. And we also schedule. They're going to use scheduling. So when you target a schedule, you're going to target the group. All right, or the individual computer. Up here is our functions. So this is our command bar, if you will. So we have the icons here, of course. And if I need to do something to a particular set of computers, I can go ahead and go to Lab 1. And then I'm going to select all computers. And one other thing to mention, our software, we have Mac software. So we have SmartShield for Mac. And our SmartShield for Mac can also be managed from our Smart Control. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to turn it over to Jesse Hevison. He has a poll that we would like to share and get everyone's thoughts on that. So Jesse? Jesse, can you hear me? Jesse might be busy asking questions. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and share that with you. So I'm going to launch this poll. All right. Great. Jesse, are you there? Can you share the poll?
Phil, this is Tony.
I am here, so I'm going to go ahead and close.
Okay, go ahead,
Jesse. Tony. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share the results. Give you a couple more seconds. And here we have the results of the poll. It looks like almost 25% of you are going to increase the number of Macs used in 2015, but 3/4 are not. So thanks for the information. I'm going to go ahead and hide that and turn it back over to you, Phil.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jesse. All right. So again, we want to kind of get that information. It seems like Macs were really increasing quite a rate for a while. It seems like things have kind of slowed down on those side again. But again, if you do have Macs out there, folks, we will be able to manage those centrally. So we're going to do some things here. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all my clients in Lab 1. And we're going to show you some of the functionality here. So on my highlighted clients, basically what I'm going to be able to do is right-click, and it pulls up this drop-down menu. And from here, I can enable or disable my client protection. I could do USB blocking. I could block the keyboard and mouse. I could also block the FireWire. Again, most of this stuff I've already covered on the client. And you'll see that about over 90% of the functionality that you can do on the client, you're going to be able to do from the centralized console. Under miscellaneous configuration, I'm able to change my stealth mode settings. Oh, sorry about that. I'm able to send client messages. So let's go ahead and do that for a second. Let's go to lab second floor. I'm going to send a message to my virtual machine. Pull this window down. And I might say test this Friday. Study hard. And then if I need to, I can put a URL here as an option. So maybe I want them to go to a particular URL that has something to do with the test, or maybe has bonus questions or something like that. But I can connect this to a URL. And if I hit OK, and I'm going to switch over to my virtual machine, and then you will see the window pops up there with my message. So it's a very simple function, but it's something that a lot of our customers tend to utilize quite a bit. Okay, again, going back to miscellaneous configuration. I can start a client application. So, for instance, if I am running a lab and I want to open up a particular PowerPoint, I could do that. If I want to have them all the machines open up the Internet Explorer, I can do that. And I can even have them go specifically to like a website, the school website, or whatever it might be in particular to the class. So again, start client application is a very useful function. Client log-off setting. So client log-off setting is something that we went over earlier on the client side. It's just going to allow you to do that reboot on log-off. Client Windows Update. This is the local function for those Windows updates. So I've already showed everyone this. This is the local way to run those Windows updates. But I can manage it and change those configurations from the console. So I can see what settings are on. and I can change that from the console. So again, this is still the first of two ways to run your Windows updates, all right, but this is just me accessing it from our centralized console. I could connect to a Windows Update server. So with the Windows Update server, if you're already using that, we can pull the updates down from the Windows Update server. File transfer. This is a very popular function. This is a time saver. So with file transfer, I have the ability to transfer whatever file that I can access through the Smart Control. And I could, let's see, I can transfer, we'll just show you real quick. We'll say it's, let's say it's this image here. I want to transfer this image. So I could take a file and I could transfer it right to the desktop. I could transfer it to a custom file location. Okay, so if I transfer it to a custom file location, I have to enter in the path of that location. Okay, so Smart Control is not going to go out and read all the directories of the client computers, because obviously that wouldn't work so well. That'd be a heck of a resource sucker, wouldn't it? So what we do is we have you go ahead and enter in the actual file location, or again you can transfer it to the desktop. I can also do that with the directory as well, folks. One thing to note is I'm going to go to all machines, and I'm going to do that same exact thing. I'm going to hit file transfer. Please note, if your machines are protected, that file will be wiped away on reboot. Okay, so we're not bypassing our own protection with our file transfer. Okay, that would put too big of a hole in our protection for people to exploit. So we give you a warning. Warning, some of the clients are protected. So you want to make sure that if you're transferring a file, you're transferring it to an unprotected machine, or you're transferring it to a machine that maybe you're using the optional directory protection for My Documents. So in that case, if I'm transferring it to that machine that's using optional directory protection and the My Documents together, then that data would be retained after reboot. So again, this is file transfer. We talked about the client daily reboot, the one-time password entry. These are all functions I've covered locally on the machine, and they're basic functions, so again, I don't want to spend too much time over them. Print blocking, enable print blocking, disable. So this will basically block printing capabilities for a computer. And again, we have the user lockdown. User lockdown, if you recall, is the way to block some things like command line, control panel, registry, start button, task managers, MSIs, and again, you have the option to blacklist applications. And again, lastly is the optional directory protection. Optional directory protection we already went over. Again, that's a way that you can locally save your information while in a protected mode. And right here you can see, just for example's sake, that we're using this one here at ODP for our antivirus updates. So we can get those real time. Okay, a few other things that I want to go over on the functionality, then we're going to get right to scheduling. We have a remote execute function. Remote execute is one of the more advanced functions, and basically what this allows me to do is execute a batch file to my clients. So I can browse to whatever batch file I want to or I need to. I can load it. And then I also have a parameters field where I can further define the command. I have the run as user option over here to the right if you'll follow my cursor. Basically what we're trying to do here is increase your success rate. If I'm running a command that falls under the privilege set of the system account, then I'm going to try to run on our system account. I may not know. It may not work, so I may want to try it under the user account. So basically this has everything to do with your privilege set and what commands you're running. So if, again, I'm running a command that falls under the user privilege set, I'm going to use it under users, or vice versa, the system account. So again, the whole idea here is that we're trying to increase your success rate and give you some more functionality to your clients. This can be used in conjunction with our file transfer. So if I have the file transfer function and I want to transfer a file, I transfer it to the desktop of all my clients, and then I could use remote execute that I create a batch file for that executes that file. So we can do some installations en masse with this format. So we're getting up here. We've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to save enough time to answer some questions, so we're going to go right to scheduling. There's 3 primary tabs. So it opened up with my view schedules, and these are all the schedules that I've created. You can see I've got lots of copies in here, lots of generic schedules, lots of repetitive schedules. I have custom actions here. Custom actions allows me to create multiple actions and combine them into one function. So if I want to do a disable protection and a reboot, I can combine those 2 actions into one, and I can call it my disboot, and I can save that custom action, and it'll let me know, yep, there it is, it's saved. Under schedule task, and you'll see that action pop up here in just a little bit. So schedule task is where we're going to start, everybody, and basically it's going to have your 3 primary tabs. Recurrence pattern, so it's going to have the start time, the recurrence, the range of recurrence, and then I'm going to name it. So we're going to start here. So let's say I'm just going to leave it at 10 o'clock, and then we'll make that p.m. So at 10 p.m., that's the time I want to start this schedule. So do I want to run it one time, or I can choose to run it every day, or I can choose to run it certain times of the week. So maybe it's this Saturday. I can also choose to run something monthly. So if I want to run it the 11th month of the day, I can do that as well. But again, for this example, let's go ahead and keep it weekly. My range of recurrence is going to start with today's date. And I can have it go from now through the end of time, right? No end date. Or I can have it stop at a certain time in the future. Maybe it's the end of March. Or I can even create a schedule, everyone, that starts in the future. So if you want to get ahead of the game, you can create a schedule that will go ahead and start March 31st, and I can have it go from then until whenever. So again, scheduling is pretty straightforward as far as that range of recurrence goes in the time. And I'm going to give this schedule name OS updates, and then I can put a description, you know, lab 1 updates. My targets and fallback. So if you'll pay attention here to the groups and the machines, all right, so what this is gives me the ability to actually select my groups that I have over here. So I have lab 1, second floor, lab 2, new group. So I can choose specific groups depending on what the criteria is for those groups, or the requirements, let's say. Maybe it's a shutdown. Maybe the kids section shuts down earlier than the adult section, or maybe a certain lab shuts down at a different time than lab 2. So again, with the grouping, it gives yourself a lot of flexibility as far as scheduling goes to be selective of what needs to be done. So we'll say it's lab 1. And then I also have different machines over here. These are all my individual machines that are connected to my smart control. So I could choose individual machines to be affected by the schedule. Our fallback. A lot of people ask me, what's fallback about? Fallback is the way to keep your machines out of limbo. Okay, everybody? So basically, we want everything to go 100%, right? Always do. But sometimes, as we all know with technology especially, it doesn't always go that way. So what do we do about it? So what we did is we created fallback. And so if I want to put, I'm going to put down 200 minutes, my maximum duration of minutes. And what this number represents is an excessive amount of time for a schedule to run. So if I'm thinking I'm going to do my Windows updates, and those updates are going to take 30 minutes to 60 minutes, maybe I put 200 minutes here because that's excessive, and I want it to be excessive. Because what's happening here is, let's say your power goes out due to a storm, your network goes down, and you're right in the middle of an update schedule, right? So what we don't want to happen is those machines are stuck in some unprotected mode and you don't know that. So if that happens and the schedule takes 200 minutes to complete, once it hits that 200 minutes, it falls back into a protected mode, okay? And I'm also going to recommend a block keyboard and mouse mode too. You could do any of these 4 combination, but the block keyboard and mouse was actually given to me by a customer out there that it gives them a visual. So their screen turns red, right? And so if a schedule didn't complete or something happened, they have a red screen, and they have a visual on that. Now we also have reporting that'll show you the status of the scheduling as well. So the most important thing on the scheduling is our actions. So I'm going to start with a WakeonLAN, all right? And we're going to update that. And we're going to add it to our action order. So what I have here is a drop-down list of all the different actions that I've created or that are created. And also my custom actions down here at the bottom. You can see my little dispute. I kind of got carried away with that. So the first thing that I want to put in my action order is a WakeonLAN. And even though I know that my computers are on, right, I still maybe want to put it there, all right, because maybe someone manually powered a computer or 2 or 3 down, and I want to make sure those computers get this update. So I just stick a WakeonLAN as the first item of the action order. Now what I'm going to do, and this next part is extremely important, everybody. So for anyone out there who has ever had trouble and used our software with scheduling Windows updates, this is my recommendation. This is my best practice that was given to me by, I'll give the gentleman credit, Ted Makowitz from Bibliomation. Ted was a wonderful customer, and he loved to pick our software apart and help us see things that we didn't see. So Ted's retired, and I hope he's enjoying his retirement. But Ted always said, definitely need to put a delay in there after every time that you do any kind of a shutdown. So in this case, I'm waking my computer up. So I stick a delay in there of 5 minutes. And what I'm doing there, folks, is I'm giving my computer a chance to catch its breath, right, before I go to the next action, which would be a disable protection. So instead of going right from a WakeonLAN to a disable protection, I stick a 5-minute delay in there. That delay is critical in order to get all your services, your drivers up and running, your processes up and running, and again, for better lack of words, to give that computer time to catch its breath. And then we put the reboot in after the disable protection. Of course, again, you have to have that reboot to change protection modes. Just to be on the safe side, we'll give it a little 3-minute delay after the reboot because, again, it's powering on. And then we're going to go ahead and choose Windows Updates. Block user in this circumstance. Execute only, basically what that does is it doesn't block the computers, all right? And it's going to run all the updates that are in the queue. So block users is a little bit more specific to your, to the needs, I think, of our customers, in that it blocks access to those computers by blocking the keyboard and mouse. And that way, no one can interface with that computer while the maintenance updates are running. So I'm going to choose 60 minutes as my maximum minutes allowed for the update. So this is the same options that you all saw earlier. Now I'll just leave it at critical, and I'm going to add the update. And now we're going to go ahead, as part of this function, actually, let me make clear that it will do all the updates that do not require human interaction, just like we've spoken about before. This will also block the keyboard and mouse, like we mentioned, and it will also do the reboot at the end, all as part of this action. Okay? So then we're going to go ahead and just maybe stick a little delay after that just to give it a little time, extra time. And then we'll go ahead and enable protection. And then we'll reboot. And now I can leave my computers on if I wish after this, or if I want, I can do a shutdown at the end, which I would recommend you do. So if everybody will notice, what we have here is at 10 p.m. every Saturday, and that was under the recurrence, 10 p.m. every Saturday. If you'll follow my cursor there on the recurrence, these actions will all go out to the computer. So WakeonLAN is a little different. It bounces back and forth between the console and the client, and then it'll launch the rest of the packets. So we're going to hang out for 5 minutes to let our computer catch its breath. Then it disables protection. And then I do a reboot to change that mode, hang out for 3 minutes, again, let the computer catch its breath, then we start the Windows Update process. That completes. We give it a little delay, just again to give it that cushion. Now we enable protection, reboots into a protected mode, and then at night I can go ahead and shut down. So this will be your recommended way to run your Windows updates, and there are some variations to this. It depends on your environment, everyone, but what we do give you is quite a bit of flexibility with our scheduling. So I'm going to leave this action order open here, and you can see we do file transfers, we can send messages, we can do scans, we can do remote executes, and a variety of things here. Okay, so these are all the different actions in our scheduling tab. I'm going to turn it over to Jesse here in a second or two, and we have the last poll of the day. Basically, we're curious out there of how many of the folks out there shut your machines off at night. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn that over to Jesse.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. So I'm going to go ahead and share this poll. This has to do with energy savings and something we're concerned about here at Centurion. So you should see the poll question now, and we'll leave this open for about 30 seconds. So we've got about 80% of you have voted. So I'll give you about another couple seconds to get any last votes in here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that poll and share the results. And it looks like, once again, we're at that 76 and 24, but we've got them flipped. Looks like most of you do, almost more than 3/4 of you shut your machines down at night. But it looks like 24% of you are still leaving those on. So thanks for your participation. That's good information for us. I'll turn it back over to you, Phil.
Okay, Jesse, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So one of the things that we do recommend, and again, obviously it depends on your environment and what you're doing there, is we recommend that you do shut your machines down at night. You're going to save probably an average of $30 to $50 a machine now. They're a little bit more efficient than they were, but I'd say $30 to $50 depending on the machine. I know that's a broad range, but there's a broad range of machines that use different types of energy or different levels of energy. So if you can save your organization $30 to $50 a machine annually, so that's $30 per machine or $50 per machine annually, just by shutting your machines off at night, that can be quite a savings, obviously, depending on the number of machines you have out there. And that's something that you can automate right here through the console. Okay, lastly, I did want to go over a little WakeonLAN. And what I'm going to show you real quick is pretty straightforward. A lot of folks ask us if our smart control will do WakeonLAN, and yes, it will. Under Network, if you go under Preferences and you go under Network, at the very bottom here you have WakeonLAN Packet Transmission. So we have Broadcast option, and we have the Unicast option. What our recommendation is that you use both Unicast and Broadcast for WakeonLAN. So with our software, this is the setting that you would go to if you want to run WakeonLAN, and again, you can do that real time from the console or as part of a schedule. One other thing that I think a lot of folks out there don't know about, but I have the people that do and are using this, that they swear by it, the auto disable input. So under General Protection Settings, and this again is in Preferences, under File, Preferences, if I check this box, every time a computer goes unprotected, it will block the keyboard and mouse automatically. So I have customers out there that are worried that maybe sometimes their computers are unprotected and they don't know it. My recommendation is that you check this box, auto disable input, and that way if the computer is unprotected, it will block the keyboard and mouse and your screen will be red. Okay, so I hope this general overview, this overview on the SmartShield suite was helpful for everyone. We are going to do some other ones with Energy Saver and our Screen View vControl functions. We'll do those down the road. I'll definitely get a notice via email when we do those. Those definitely won't be as long, I don't think, unless we combine the two or add some other things to those webinars. But we're going to be doing a lot more of these. What we want to do, everyone, is just have more communication with our customers. We want to make sure that our software is easy to use, so you're going to see that communication definitely increase over time. I do want to mention that we're going to have a currentware webinar on February 11th at 10 a.m. Central. Again, that's SmartShield Currentware. That's our internet filtering software. We're going to be doing an overview on February 11th at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Lastly, we are going to send out basically a follow-up email with a survey, and if you would take some time, they're pretty simple questions. If you could take some time, that will help us improve our webinars as we move forward. We greatly appreciate it. If you like us on Facebook, again, if you like us on Facebook, we're also offering a 10% coupon off your next purchase. So please like us on Facebook, everybody. We've been around for a long time, and we got a lot of loyal customers. So like us on Facebook if you would. I think that's about it today. I hope this was helpful for everyone. And again, a copy of this recording will be available later this week or early next week. All right. Again, thanks everybody for attending. Hopefully this was helpful for everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Jesse and Tony, and they're going to go over some final questions that were frequently asked.
Hi, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. So we had a lot of questions today, and thank you so much for your participation. We had quite a few questions on scheduling, although not all the same thing. We had quite a few questions on WakeonLAN. The first thing I'd like to say is if you would like to have some questions but you didn't feel like they were answered, please contact us directly. Either your account manager, or you can also contact technical support for help. We had some of you who have had some problems and would like to talk to technical support. Please contact them. They're right here in-house, and they're awesome. As far as questions we had, one question that we got was about the communication between SmartShield and Smart Control, whether or not that communication can work across subnets. It will work across subnets. It just requires some tweaking in the Preferences tab, and we can go over that if you call us directly about how we can get this to work across subnets or even over the Internet. Tony, did you have a question that you would like to go over? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. And I'd like to turn it back over to you, Phil. Once again, if you have any other questions, we have too many to cover here, but if you still have unanswered questions, please contact us on a one-on-one basis. Thank you. Phil?
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Thank you very much. It sounds like we had a whole bunch of questions. I think Tony may still be answering some. But again, if we did not get your questions answered, please don't hesitate to contact us directly. We'll be glad to answer them. And Demetrius is the head of our technical support. His team is great in there. And all of our technical support is here in St. Louis in our corporate office. So if they don't know the answer, then they can walk right down to our developers who are also here and get the answer and get back to you. But again, just want to thank everybody. We're pretty much at our time. We'll be doing more of these in the future, some more focused again like on our modules like Energy Saver, Screen View, and Bee Control. And again, February 11th, mark the date if you have any interest in internet filtering software. And actually, SmartShield Currentware will also block devices on your PCs. So it's not only internet filtering, but it is device blocking as well on your PCs. And that's, again, February 11th at 10 a.m. Thanks very much, everybody. Hope this was helpful. Enjoy the rest of your day. And that concludes the webinar.